Just tell us a little your story, because as a young generation, we always interested in senior, people. How do you experience, and how do you keep yourself young and always catch up with the news or the current affairs or your career, like water? Yeah. How did you begin with your career?
Well, I grew up on a farm, so I used to say I know from where the food is coming, and that's very good, because people who are growing up in a city, they can go to a supermarket and they think that the food is produced behind the scenes, so to speak. But so I've been milking cows, and I've been doing different things in the field. So I think that's a very good experience, to have this kind of basic facts of life from your own hands, so to speak. So I grew up on the west coast of Sweden, then I started school, and then I got to university, and I have a social science education. So I don't have any education in hydrology, I don't have anything in engineering.
What's your subject?
My subject is economics, human geography, statistics, and sociology. So then I collected information for a PhD in Tanzania, in East Africa. Our daughter, she was born in Dar es Salaam in 1917. And then we came back, my wife is a psychologist. We came back from Tanzania in 1972. We moved to Norway in 1973 because I got a good job there, and my wife got a job at the hospital as a psychologist. So we were working in Norway for about 7 years, and then then we wanted to move back to Sweden. So I applied for different jobs, but one of the jobs I applied for was a professor at the Department of Water and Environmental Studies at Linköping University, about 200 kilometers south of Stockholm. So I was lucky there. I got that professorship. I was too young. I was only 38 years old. 37.
How can you succeed? There's a lack of human resources, or what?
Sorry?
I heard in those days people can simply get a job which they don't know at all, actually. Is that the case?
Well,
was that the case?
I wouldn't say that really, but the labor market was more easy in those days. I think it has become more competitive now. But if you are applying for the high positions, like professorships, like directors, they're usually quite competitive, and you have to go through a rigorous kind of procedure with evaluations of different types. Anyway, I got the job as a professor, and it was I am a social scientist, and it was a Department of Water and Environmental Studies, but then it was a transdisciplinary group of people. It was a PhD training program, so we didn't have any undergraduates. So we were 3 professors from the beginning: one hydrologist, one biologist. The hydrologist, water, of course, and then the biologist with land, ecosystems, such things, and then one social scientist on management, on legal,
So this is a very interesting, right? From beginning, when you're dealing with a water issue, you actually think of biology, and so now dealing with water for the water's sake, right?
Yeah,
dealing with it with plants, biology, animals, and then you also with the economy, society. Huh?
Yeah. So we looked into it from different angles, So we tried to define a common research topic. And then we say we need people who have that kind of competence, hydrology, engineering, chemistry. We had a big laboratory for experimental work, social sciences, and even humanities, because you have to have the human aspects included in it. So I was working as a professor there for 29 years. But I was a consultant for different international groups like FAO in Rome, Food and Agriculture Organization, for instance, different other organizations in outside Sweden, but also Swedish SIDA, Swedish International Development Agency. So then I had, my main role was to supervise PhD students. So I was supervising students who come from both social sciences, from ecosystems or from ecology, from, well, I was together with other people, supervising people from biological backgrounds. So it was a very good experience to see how the knowledge from different competencies could be formed together and to see the common part.
Result.
Because that's reality. I mean, society is not split up into hydrology. The society is a mixture of people, of land, of water, of economic aspect, of energy. So that's reality. So we tried we had those kind of formulations. And then, you know, I came to, I started earlier, but from 2009, when I retired from the university, then I could work for CV and for other organizations more full-time. So since then I have been a senior scientific advisor at CV, and I've been doing work for the United Nations, different organizations, and for different organizations. And I've been doing projects we started in Africa. I've been doing projects in China together with Chinese colleagues. And we did one small study for Nestlé company in China, looking for the water used for the production of powder milk in the north of China. They have many factories in China, but they were interested to see how much water goes into producing the crops, the different feed for the animals, and what are the possibilities to improve the efficiency, to reduce the losses and the waste. And then we found out that there is in China, in that part of the North China, it's a very efficient, both farming system and the factory where they produce the powder milk, very efficient. So the losses, the waste comes further down, you know, and among the consumers. The consumers who are the big culprits, you know, they are wasting food. Mm-hmm. So we see that the production of different commodities is usually very effective, because the farmers, they cannot afford to lose water. They have to be effective. The industry, the factories, they have to run at a high efficiency, you know. But then, you know, the consumers, they don't have that same kind of ambition. So you feel that you see that people, both in Sweden and China, everywhere, people are buying a lot of food. They're throwing away. They're eating too much. So we have, I think, I'm looking at the supply chain, what I call from field to fork. So we look at how water is used in the production of food and in the manufacturing of food, and then the cooking and the
So in the end, actually, it's the end user or the consumer who should be educated or publicized with awareness. Or
I think that is very important. But you can say that we have rules, we have regulations, we have economic standards for farmers. Farmers are not allowed to do whatever they like. They have to follow different rules and regulations. And we have rules and regulations for industry, but we don't have any rules and regulations for
individuals. Yeah. So the people are not innocent, actually, right?
We can do what we like.
So we say, you have the rights, but people sometimes abuse the rights to waste too much, right? Yeah, I think that is a big issue, actually, because in China, from what I was a journalist for this almost 30 years. I mean, the government really tried to discipline, and like you say, the industry of farmers, they also quite disciplined. But the people, often think they are so free to do whatever they like, but
and if they don't like that, they go to that place, you know.
yeah.
So I mean, they can. If China, Sweden, you have such a big supply of different food items, you know. There's an overabundant supply, you know. You can choose. You can pick and choose. Huh? And they don't have to. They are not responsible for.
I think as an expert, you should call on the people to, at least you like prominent figures to say, we have to save, or we have to be responsible as individual, right?
Yeah, and you know that if I take Sweden, I don't know how it is in China, but in Sweden, when I grew up in the 1950s, 1960s, the household spent about 30% of the budget on food, buying food from the shops and such. 30%, 1/3. Now it's about 10%. So food has become very cheap compared to what it used to be. So now people have much more money to buy much more, so to speak. But then at the same time, you know, the farming, food production is also heavily subsidized. So I mean, there are different subsidies on the inputs on water supply, not so much in Sweden, but in other parts of the world. I mean, irrigation is subsidized usually. So that means that I used to say that if you go and buy food in the shop, you see the price tag. But that's only one price. Then you pay one price over your tax bill, and you pay a third price over the environmental degradation. So I think that the consumers should be more aware of the fact that what we are expecting, what we are demanding, what we are using has implication for water, has implication for the land, has implication for greenhouse gas emissions. And there should be a price on these kind of things. Huh? But consumers are not very willing to pay that price. They think it should be paid by someone else. The neighbor maybe, or the parents. Or
but we have only one planet and we all live here. So
right.
we
Yes,
should,
right.
if we don't take responsibility, then who should?
But then we also have one life.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the right, if we don't treat our water properly, it gets polluted and you get problems health-wise. If we eat too much, if we eat the wrong things, we get problems. So I mean, there's also a health cost.
So you keep so well your figure. It means you are very disciplined in eating, right?
Well, we try to do that, yes. And we try to reduce the waste of food. Huh? I mean, we try to buy what we should eat, not what we like to have.
Okay.
But I mean, you can put, if you have fridges, you have deep freezers. You don't have to, and you have shops nearby, so we don't have to pile up huge amounts.
In the
buy
fridge.
more or less in accordance to what we reasonably can prepare and eat. But you know, if you buy a lot, put into the fridge, put into the freezer, you forget what you have in the fridge. And then after a week, you find, I had that one. That's too old. I have to throw it away. Huh? So there are many practical ways to, I think, to make people more aware. And then you save money also. If you buy too much, then you spend more money than you need to spend on these kinds of things. So there is a combination of different arguments. I mean, as you say, we have one planet, we have one life, should be a good one, and we have one economy. So having a good kind of, a better lifestyle, human behavior is very important both for ourselves, for the environment, for water, for the next generation.
Yeah, okay, sorry, time is up. And thank you very much for your advice.
Thank you.
I think here we have a very senior and well-known professor and senior consultant in water issues and in food and economy. So
And food and nutrition.
And food and nutrition,
Yeah.
and the most well-known expert. So let's listen to this advice, and we should really behave for a better future. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.